Have you ever felt like you're standing inside a crowded room, yet somehow completely unseen? Almost as if there's an invisible sheet of glass between you and the rest of the world. People speak, laugh, go about their lives. And still, you feel like you're on the outside looking in. For many years, perhaps you thought something was wrong with you. You were told you were too sensitive, too intense, or simply too much. But here is a truth that might shift the entire way you see yourself. You are not too much for this world. This world has simply not yet grown spacious enough to hold the depth you carry. And in that realization, there is no defect, no mistake, no flaw to correct. There is only the quiet recognition that your life has been whispering to you all along. You are rare. Carl Jung once said that the greatest privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Most of us spend years running away from ourselves, disguising our sensitivities, dimming our light just to feel accepted. But there comes a point in the journey, perhaps you're arriving at it now, when you realize the very traits that made you feel like an outsider are not burdens at all. They are signals. They are seeds of the future already planted inside you. You see, in the language of consciousness, sensitivity is intelligence. Intensity is energy. And the refusal to settle for shallow answers is not stubbornness. It's the call of evolution. It's the soul saying, there must be more than this. Think about it this way. Imagine a river. For years it may twist and bend, slowing itself down to follow the curves of the land. But no matter how many turns it takes, it remembers something deeper. Its destiny is to reach the ocean. And so are you. You can delay. You can resist. You can try to fit into narrow channels dug by society. But the deeper current of your being will always pull you back toward truth, toward wholeness, toward freedom. And when you finally allow yourself to stop resisting, something beautiful happens. The loneliness begins to shift into belonging. Not belonging to the crowd, but belonging to the flow of life itself. This path, however, isn't always gentle. To live as one of these rare souls often means carrying both light and shadow more intensely than others. You feel emotions like symphonies moving through your body. You sense undercurrents in conversations before a single word is spoken. You question realities most accept without thought. And sometimes, yes, it is exhausting. Sometimes it feels like a heavy gift, one you never asked for. But what if this gift isn't random? What if your sensitivity is not weakness, but rather a finely tuned instrument designed to perceive life at a higher frequency? What if the very thing you thought separated you from others is the very thing that connects you to the heartbeat of the universe? In quantum science, they say that observation changes reality. The mere act of paying attention shifts the field of possibilities. Think about that for a moment. If simply observing a particle can change its path, what happens when you, with your rare and heightened awareness, observe the people, the spaces, and the energies around you? You're not just noticing, you're participating in the unfolding of reality itself. And that's why it can feel so overwhelming sometimes, because you're not living on the surface, where things are simple and predictable. You're living in the depths, where each moment carries layers of meaning. You're not broken. You're breakthrough. I know. For many of you watching this, life has not been easy. Perhaps your family told you to tone it down. Perhaps friends drifted away because they couldn't meet you in your depth. Perhaps you've spent decades doubting yourself, wondering if something inside you was fundamentally misaligned. And yet, you're still here, still searching, still listening for the resonance that tells you, yes, this is who I am. This is the frequency of truth. That's why Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole. It is not about becoming someone else, nor about discarding the parts of you that feel too much. It's about gathering them all, the sensitivity, the intensity, the curiosity, the solitude, and weaving them into one integrated self. It is about stepping out from behind the glass and realizing the barrier was never between you and the world. It was between you and your acceptance of yourself. And when you embrace that acceptance, the world shifts. You begin to notice synchronicities, those uncanny alignments, where the right people, opportunities, or insights appear just when you need them. That's not coincidence. That's resonance. That's your field aligning with the larger field of consciousness. So perhaps the question isn't, why am I so different? The real question is, what if my difference is exactly what the world needs? Because history has always been carried forward by those who didn't fit the mold, by the ones who saw beyond the status quo, by the ones whose questions threatened comfortable illusions, and whose presence illuminated possibilities others couldn't see. And you, yes, you sitting right here, listening to these words, might be one of them. You might be carrying the frequency of tomorrow inside your very being. So, let yourself soften. Stop apologizing for your depth. Stop trying to compress yourself into boxes that were never built for souls like yours. Instead, breathe into the spaciousness of who you are. Feel the current pulling you toward the ocean of authenticity. And remember, you are not too much. You are exactly enough. Because in the end, the rarest gift you can give this world is not another version of conformity. It is the courage to live as yourself, fully, openly, unapologetically, and when you do, you don't just free yourself. You become a mirror, and through you, others begin to remember their own depth too. 1. Emotional depth like a symphony. There are moments when life does not simply pass through you. It reverberates. For some people, an experience is like a single note, quickly heard and quickly forgotten. But for you, émotions arrive like entire symphonies, carrying layers of tone, harmony, and resonance that linger long after the initial sound fades. When joy comes, it is not just a smile or a fleeting lightness. It is a whole orchestra rising, strings swelling in the chest, horns lifting you higher than the ceiling of the room. You feel it in your body, in your skin, in your bones. And when grief comes, it is not a quiet sigh. It is a cello playing low and steady, a sound that moves through your heart as though it belongs not only to you, but to the collective sorrow of humanity. For years, you may have believed that this was a flaw, that you were too easily moved, too easily broken. Perhaps someone told you to stop overreacting or toughen up. But what they did not see, what maybe even you could not see at the time, is that you were not overreacting. You were fully responding. You were allowing life to reach you at its deepest register. It is much like standing in front of a vast painting. Some glance at it and see only color on canvas, quickly moving on. But you stand still. You notice the brush strokes, the hidden shades, the tension in the artist's choices. You feel the story behind the paint, the weight of a hand that once trembled as it reached for the brush. To you, the painting is alive. To you, the world has always been alive. And yet, because of this gift, you may have often felt out of place. In a society that celebrates quick reactions and easy distractions, depth can feel like a burden. You may have wondered why small talk leaves you restless, why superficial pleasures quickly turn to dust in your hands, why you sense the unspoken currents in a room when no one else seems to notice. But let me say this clearly. Your emotional depth is not weakness. It is intelligence. It is your soul's way of perceiving truth. Think of it as a finely tuned instrument, capable of hearing frequencies others cannot. If others hear only the melody, you hear the hidden harmonies that shape the entire piece. There were times when this gift may have felt unbearable. When love ended, it was not a simple goodbye for you. It was the crashing of cymbals, the echo of silence after music is cut short. When loss came, it did not skim across the surface of your days. It carved valleys inside you. Valleys so deep you thought you might never climb out. But here is the miracle. Those valleys became space for rivers to flow, for gardens to grow. Your pain, when held with awareness, became fertile soil for wisdom and compassion. I remember once speaking with someone who said, "I wish I didn't feel so much. It hurts too deeply." And I told them, yes, it hurts. But the very depth that makes the hurt so heavy is the same depth that allows joy to be transcendent. If you cut off the valleys, you cut off the mountains too. Your emotional symphonies are not random. They are part of the great design. In quantum physics, we know that vibration shapes matter. Sound waves create patterns in sand, water, and air. In the same way, the vibrations of your emotions create patterns within your life. Each note of feeling rearranges the inner world, and through it, your outer reality begins to shift. But the invitation is not to drown in the music. The invitation is to listen, to allow the notes to rise, fall, and fade without clinging to them. Imagine sitting in a concert hall. The orchestra begins, crescendos, softens, and eventually ends. You do not try to trap the sound in your hands. You let it move through you. And in the end, you carry the memory of the beauty, not the burden of trying to control it. This is the way of living with emotional depth, not denying the music, not silencing the instruments, but letting them play fully while remembering that you are the listener, not the song itself. And as you walk through life with this gift, something profound happens. You begin to sense that emotions are not private possessions. They are bridges. When you feel deeply, you are touching something universal. Your tears are not just your tears. They are the ocean's salt. Your laughter is not just your laughter. It is the sound of creation remembering itself. Perhaps that is why, when you sit with someone in silence, they feel understood, even without words. Because your heart is an open instrument, tuned to the frequencies that most people ignore. You can carry the resonance of another person's story without judgment, simply by allowing the music of their soul to pass through yours. This is not an easy path. Sensitivity can make the world's chaos feel unbearable at times. But healing begins when you realize you are not here to mute the symphony. You are here to dance with it, to witness it, to let it teach you. And when you accept this, the very thing that once felt like too much becomes your doorway into deeper connection, deeper presence, deeper love. So, if you have ever wondered why you feel everything so intensely, remember this: you are not broken. You are not fragile. You are a symphony, and your task is not to quiet the music. It is to learn how to let it move through you, and in doing so, to let it awaken others to the music they have forgotten to hear. 2. Sacred curiosity. There is a kind of curiosity that is not casual, not the kind that seeks entertainment or distraction. It is deeper. It is almost holy. It is the kind of curiosity that refuses to stop at the surface of things, that cannot be satisfied with the simple answer everyone else accepts. While most people are content with asking what happened? What is this? What does it look like? You are drawn to the question why. Why does it exist at all? Why do we act the way we do? Why does something stir inside me when the world tells me to stay quiet from the time you were young? You may have felt this pull. Perhaps you were the child who asked too many questions at the dinner table. The one who wanted to know not just how things worked, but why they worked that way in the first place. And sometimes, the adults around you grew tired of it. Stop asking so much. They might have said, just accept it, but you couldn't. Something in you knew that to stop asking was to stop living. Sacred curiosity is not about endless analysis or mental games. It is not about collecting facts the way a squirrel collects acorns. It is about piercing through the veil of appearances, about sensing that behind every event, every pattern, every human behavior, there is a deeper truth waiting to be uncovered. Imagine standing before a locked door. Most people would glance at it, shrug, and walk away. But you stand still. You notice the wood, the markings on its surface, the quiet hum that seems to rise from behind it. And then, instead of simply saying, "It's just a door," you ask, "What's behind it? Why is it here? What would open if I turn the handle?" That is the essence of your gift. You see doors where others see walls. This curiosity can sometimes feel like both a blessing and a burden. Blessing, because it keeps your spirit alive, vibrant, and awake. Burden, because it often unsettles others. When you ask the deeper questions, you are not only seeking answers, you are challenging the fragile structures people build to feel safe. You are shaking the foundations of illusions they would rather keep intact. And so, they may call you difficult or accuse you of overthinking. But in truth, you are simply refusing to live unconsciously. The world often runs on autopilot. People wake, eat, work, sleep, without pausing to ask why they do what they do. But you cannot help yourself. You feel the emptiness in routines that have no meaning. You sense the hollowness in conversations that skim the surface but never touch the soul. And so, you keep digging. There is beauty in this kind of digging, because every why you ask is like a shovel, uncovering treasure buried beneath layers of habit and fear. You ask, why do we accept systems that do not serve human flourishing, you ask? Why do we trade authenticity for approval, you ask? Why do we settle for existing when we were made for awakening? And in those questions, you are not just seeking information. You are creating cracks in the walls of limitation, cracks through which light can enter. In the language of consciousness, sacred curiosity is like opening a window in a stuffy room. Suddenly, fresh air rushes in. Possibility enters. The space feels larger, freer. This is what happens in your life when you keep asking why. You refuse to let life shrink into something mechanical. You stretch it open until it becomes expansive again. Science itself is born of this same spirit. Quantum physics, the study of realities so subtle we cannot see them with our eyes, exists because some minds refuse to stop at appearances. They asked, why does light behave like both a wave and a particle? Why does observation change the outcome of an experiment? Why does possibility collapse into form the moment we look at it? And in asking these questions, humanity was brought closer to the mystery of creation. So too with you. Your questions are not random. They are part of the unfolding of consciousness itself. When you ask why, you are serving life by refusing to accept shallow answers. You are keeping the door to wonder open. But here is something important. Sacred curiosity is not about chasing endless explanations. It is not about forcing every mystery to yield to your control. It is about dwelling in the openness, the willingness to stay present with uncertainty. Sometimes, the most profound answer to a question is not a solution, but a silence that deepens your awareness. Think of a tree. You can ask why it grows toward the light, why its roots reach for the soil, why its leaves turn with the seasons. You can study its biology and chart its growth. But beyond all the explanations, there is still the mystery. It lives. Sacred curiosity is learning to hold both, the understanding and the awe. And perhaps that is why, when you meet someone who has lived unconsciously, your questions can sound threatening, because to live with curiosity is to live awake, and to live awake is to disturb the comfortable sleep of others. But never forget, your questions are sacred precisely because they open doors not only for yourself, but for others too. If you have ever been told you think too much, know this: it is not overthinking. It is inner seeing. It is the soul peering through the cracks of reality, searching for the truth hidden underneath. Your task is not to silence that voice, but to honor it, to let it guide you gently, not into obsession, but into clarity. So the next time you feel the weight of not fitting in, remember, it is because you were not born to sit quietly at the surface. You were born to dive, to question, to uncover. You were born to keep the flame of curiosity alive in a world that too often chooses numbness. And in that flame, others may eventually find their own courage to ask why. 3. Independence forged from within. There are times in life when solitude is not a choice, but a necessity. Times when you find yourself standing alone, not because you wanted distance, but because life pushed you there. And in those moments of aloneness, something begins to form inside you, a quiet strength that no one else can touch. Maybe you've lived through a season where support was taken away, when the people you thought you could lean on simply weren't there. Maybe it was the end of a relationship, or the loss of someone who anchored your life, or perhaps it was less dramatic. A slow realization that the crowd you once blended into no longer spoke the same language of your soul. However it happened, you were left standing with only yourself. And though it hurt, though it felt unbearably heavy at times, that was where the roots of your independence began to grow. Independence forged from within is different from the independence society often praises. The world tends to glorify a certain kind of independence, the self-made person, the rugged individual who claims they never needed anyone. But that isn't what we're speaking of here. This inner independence doesn't come from pride or from rejecting others. It comes from a deep encounter with yourself, from realizing that who you are cannot be built upon the shifting sands of other people's approval. When you are forced into solitude, you discover something extraordinary. At first, it feels like emptiness, silence pressing against you from every side, the absence of voices that once filled your days. But if you sit in that silence long enough, it transforms. The silence becomes a sanctuary, and within that sanctuary, you begin to hear a voice you had forgotten, your own. This is the paradox when life takes away the company you thought you needed. It gives you back the self you had abandoned. Alone, you begin to realize that no one can hand you your worth. No one else can tell you who you are in the way your own soul can. That kind of discovery cannot be rushed. It has to be lived. It has to be endured. It has to be earned in the quiet hours when you wonder if you will ever feel at home again. And slowly, through that process, you build something unshakable. You build an identity that does not crumble when someone leaves. When a job ends, when the applause dies down, you learn to stand rooted in your own ground, like a tree that has grown strong not by avoiding storms, but by holding fast through them. I often think of it this way. Imagine forging metal. To create a blade that will endure, it must be placed in the fire, hammered, shaped, cooled, and heated again. Each strike makes it stronger. Each flame purifies it. Your independence has been forged in the same way. The fire of loneliness, the hammer of adversity, the cooling of reflection. Together they have shaped you into someone who can stand without leaning. Someone whose strength is not borrowed but born from within. This is not to say you no longer need people. Of course, human beings are meant to connect, to love, to walk together. But there is a difference between loving out of fullness and clinging out of emptiness. When your independence is forged from within, you no longer attach to others as a way of filling a void. You meet them as a whole being, able to give and receive freely. You can walk beside someone without losing yourself, because you know that even if the road turns and they must go a different way, your ground remains steady beneath your feet. There is a kind of freedom in this that cannot be described until you feel it. It's the freedom of knowing that your center is yours alone, that the storms may come, the seasons may change, but the core of who you are will not be swept away. This independence becomes not a wall against intimacy, but a foundation for it, because when you no longer depend on others for your sense of worth, you can truly see them, truly love them, without the desperate need for them to complete you. And yet, let's not romanticize it too much. The path to this kind of independence is often paved with nights of doubt, days of longing, moments when the silence feels unbearable. I know this, because I have walked through it too. There are times when you feel like crying out, "Why me? Why must I always be the one who stands alone?" But later, when you look back, you realize that those very nights were where your soul grew its backbone. Those very days were where your voice began to carry its true strength. So if you find yourself in such a season right now, if the people you counted on are gone, if you are walking through what feels like an endless valley of solitude, hold on. This is not the end. This is the forging. This is the fire that will make you stronger than you ever imagined. And one day, when you stand before others, they will feel it. They will sense that your independence is not arrogance, but authenticity. They will notice that you carry yourself with a quiet assurance that cannot be faked, because it was bought with the currency of lived experience. Independence forged from within is not about shutting others out. It is about being so deeply anchored in yourself that you can invite others in without fear of losing your ground. It is about knowing that you are whole, even when you walk alone. And that, perhaps, is the most sacred gift of all. 4. Hyperactive awareness. Deep, intuitive perception. There are things you notice that others overlook. It's not because you're trying to be different, and it's not because you're analyzing every detail. It's simply how you are wired. Your awareness reaches beyond words, beyond appearances, into the silent spaces most people pass by without ever seeing. Think about the last time you sat with someone who told you they were fine. To most people, that would have been enough. They would have nodded, moved on, accepted the words at face value. But you felt something else. The way their voice trembled slightly, the way their shoulders sank when they thought no one noticed. The pause that lasted just a little too long before they answered. All of those small signals whispered to you, no, they are not fine. This is what deep intuitive perception feels like. It's like standing in a room and hearing not just the melody, but the hidden harmony beneath it, while others listen to the song of life as it's played on the surface. You hear the undertones, the notes that no instrument seems to make, but that your soul recognizes instantly. And sometimes, it can be exhausting, because you can't turn it off. You walk into a room and you immediately sense the energy, whether it's light or heavy, open or closed. You notice when two people are smiling politely but carrying tension between them. You pick up on the subtle shifts in atmosphere that most people ignore. It's like being tuned to a frequency that others don't even realize exists. For a long time, you may have doubted this ability. Maybe you told yourself you were imagining things, being paranoid, reading too much into situations. But over and over, life proved you right. Your first instinct, your quiet knowing, turned out to be true, more often than not. And slowly, you began to realize this is not a weakness. It's a gift. I think of it like the wind moving through trees. Most people feel only the breeze when it's strong enough to stir the leaves. But you feel it before it arrives. You sense the shift in the air, the subtle cooling, the silence that falls just before the gust. That is your awareness. You pick up on what is not yet visible. This kind of perception is both beautiful and challenging. On the one hand, it allows you to connect deeply with others. People feel seen by you in ways they can't explain. They sense that you are listening not just to their words, but to their whole being, and that creates safety. That creates healing. On the other hand, it can weigh on you, because when you see behind the masks, when you feel the hidden sorrows, when you sense the anger people try to hide, you carry it, even without meaning to. You take it in. And unless you learn how to hold this awareness without letting it consume you, it can drain your energy. I've known people with this gift who became the unofficial therapists of their families, their workplaces, their communities. Everyone turned to them because they listened, because they understood. And while that may sound noble, over time, it left them empty, because they were carrying pain that wasn't theirs to carry. That's why discernment becomes so important. Just because you can feel something doesn't mean you are meant to fix it. Just because you can see someone's shadow doesn't mean it's your responsibility to drag it into the light. Sometimes, your role is simply to witness, to let someone feel seen without trying to change them, to notice the unspoken truth but hold it gently, without judgment, without interference. In the quiet of your own life, this awareness can also be a compass. It points you toward what is real and away from what is false. You sense when someone's words don't match their energy. You sense when a path looks appealing but feels wrong in your body. You sense when an opportunity is shiny on the outside but hollow at the core. And when you trust that inner knowing, you often find that it leads you exactly where you need to go. It reminds me of birds migrating across vast distances. They don't stop to analyze maps or calculate directions with their minds. They feel the pull of the Earth's magnetic fields, an unseen guidance system built into their very being. That is what your intuition is like. It may not always make logical sense, but when you follow it, you realize it was leading you along the truest path all along. Of course, living with such heightened awareness is not always easy. It can make you feel different, isolated, even overwhelmed. But here is the truth. I've come to understand awareness is not here to punish you. It is here to awaken you, to remind you that life is more than appearances, that behind every word, every gesture, every moment, there is a deeper layer waiting to be seen. So instead of resisting it, learn to breathe with it. When you enter a room heavy with tension, ground yourself before you absorb it. When you feel another's sorrow, honor it without making it your own. When you sense the quiet joy in someone's eyes, let it lift you too. In time, you begin to realize that this awareness is not a curse but a bridge. It connects you to the invisible threads that weave human hearts together. It allows you to recognize suffering where it hides, and love where it flickers faintly, waiting to be acknowledged. It helps you walk through life not blind, but awake. And maybe that is the greatest gift of all, to live awake, to notice what others overlook, to hear the music beneath the noise, to see not just the surface, but the soul. If you carry this gift, remember, it was never meant to break you. It was meant to guide you, to deepen you, and to remind you that reality is more than what the eyes can see. Trust it, nurture it, and let it be the compass that carries you home. 5. The craving for meaning. There comes a point in life when you realize that surface pleasures no longer satisfy you. The parties, the possessions, the applause, they may sparkle for a moment, but they fade quickly, leaving you emptier than before. And perhaps you've wondered why. Why can't I be content with the things that seem to make others happy? Why do I feel this gnawing hunger even when I've achieved what I thought I wanted? The answer is simple, though not always easy to face. You crave meaning. And craving meaning is not a preference, not a personality quirk. It is a necessity of the soul. Just as the body needs air and water, your spirit needs truth, authenticity, and purpose to live. Many people try to build their lives on external rewards, the job title, the house, the social approval, and for a while, they manage to convince themselves it's enough. But for you, the hollowness is undeniable. You can feel it. You can sense when something is out of alignment with your essence. You can't pretend a shallow life is fulfilling, because your soul won't let you. This is both your challenge and your gift. The challenge, because it often isolates you from the crowd. When others are celebrating achievements that look good on paper, but feel empty in the heart, you are left standing quietly, asking yourself, but does it matter? Does it nourish my being? Does it carry any truth? And the gift? Because this craving is the very thing that keeps you from losing yourself in illusions. It pulls you toward what is real, even when it costs you comfort. I've known people who have walked away from everything society told them to want: the stable job, the approval of their families, the roles they were expected to play. Why? Because they could no longer ignore the quiet desperation inside. They knew they were betraying themselves, and no amount of external success could silence that truth. Perhaps you have felt this too. That ache that says, there is more to life than this. It is not an easy path. At times, it feels like you are swimming upstream while the rest of the world flows the other way. People may look at you and wonder why you can't just settle, why you can't just be satisfied with what is. But you know in your bones that settling would be death by slow suffocation. For you, to live without meaning is not to live at all. And so, you search. Sometimes the search takes you into books, teachings, spiritual paths. Sometimes it leads you into silence, into nature, into the vastness of your own heart. Sometimes it shows up in the simplest of things, the way sunlight falls through leaves, the way music can move you to tears, the way a single conversation can awaken something long asleep inside. Meaning is not always found in grand visions or lofty missions. Often, it reveals itself in the ordinary. Once you begin to live authentically, when you speak words that align with your truth, when you act in ways that reflect your values, when you love without pretense, suddenly, the ordinary becomes luminous. Suddenly, meaning is everywhere. But here's the thing. This craving never fully goes away. And it's not supposed to. It's like thirst. You don't quench it once and for all. You keep returning to the well, again and again, because that is how you stay alive. Meaning is not a destination to be reached. It's a practice, a rhythm, a way of walking through life awake. I think of it like the hunger of a tree. A tree never stops reaching toward the light. Every day, its leaves stretch upward. Its roots stretch downward, always seeking, always longing, always growing. That longing is not a weakness. It is life itself, expressing its desire to expand. In the same way, your craving for meaning is the soul's way of reaching toward truth, toward growth, toward the fullness of what you are meant to become. And yes, it can be painful at times, to feel this longing in a world content with distraction, to carry questions that others dismiss, to hunger for authenticity when the culture is addicted to appearances. But remember, this pain is also your compass. It tells you where not to stay. It tells you which paths are false. It keeps you from numbing yourself with what cannot satisfy. So, honor your craving. Don't try to silence it or bury it. Let it lead you. Let it burn away what is false. Let it guide you to the people, the places, the practices that make your soul come alive. Because at the end of the day, life is not about how much you've collected, how much you've performed, how much you've been admired. Life is about how true you've been to yourself. Did you live aligned with your essence? Did you honor your longing for meaning? Did you allow your life to become an expression of what mattered most? If you can answer yes, then you will know something far deeper than fleeting happiness. You will know fulfillment. You will know peace. You will know that your craving was never a curse, but a blessing, the hand of your soul pulling you back, again and again, to what is real. 6. The many deaths and rebirths. Life has a way of asking us to let go, often before we feel ready. Again and again, you've been asked to leave behind something that once defined you, an environment you outgrew, a relationship that no longer held truth, or even an older version of yourself that could not walk with you into the next chapter. Each time, it felt like a kind of death. And yet, after the grief, after the silence, you rose again, larger, freer, more alive than before. We don't often talk about these small deaths, but they shape us more than we realize. The end of a friendship that once felt inseparable, the career you poured years into, only to discover it was draining your soul. The beliefs you clung to, until one day, they simply could not contain the truth rising inside you. These endings sting. They can feel like the ground beneath you has crumbled. And in a way, it has, because the ground you stood on belonged to a version of you that no longer exists. There is sorrow in this. Of course, to shed an old life, even one that limited you, is still to lose something familiar. It's like peeling away a skin you once thought was permanent. It leaves you exposed, rough, uncertain, and yet, in that rawness, in that exposed place, there is also the beginning of something new. I often think of it like the seasons. In autumn, the leaves fall, and the branches are left bare. It looks like death, but hidden beneath the soil, life is preparing for renewal. The roots are gathering strength, and by spring, the tree blooms again, stronger and fuller. Your own deaths and rebirths are much the same. From the outside, people may see only the loss. They may say, "Why did you change? Why did you walk away?" But deep inside, it was not just an ending. It was preparation for a new life waiting to emerge. You may have noticed that some people struggle to accept these transformations. They want you to stay who you were when they first met you. They remember the version of you who played small, who agreed to fit in, who silenced their truth for the sake of peace. And sometimes, they ask for that version back, because it feels safer for them. But you cannot go back. Once you've glimpsed the truth, once you've grown beyond those limits, returning would be like trying to breathe underwater after learning how to breathe freely in the open air. And so you grieve. You grieve the relationships that could not survive your expansion. You grieve the comfort of identities that once gave you belonging. You grieve the person you used to be, even as you celebrate the person you are becoming. That's the paradox of rebirth. It is always born out of loss. But the loss is never the final word, because each time you've let go, you've discovered something extraordinary. The self that rose from the ashes was not weaker, not smaller, but stronger, clearer, freer. You found a voice you didn't know you had. You discovered resilience in the very places you thought you would break. You felt the spaciousness that comes when you are no longer carrying what no longer serves you. It is not easy to walk this path. Death and rebirth are rarely gentle. Sometimes it feels like being torn apart, like standing at the edge of a cliff without knowing if wings will appear. But time and again, they have. Each fall has led to a flight you could not have imagined before. Each ending has revealed a beginning you did not know was possible. There may still be times when you resist, when an old life feels too precious to release, when the thought of shedding another skin feels unbearable. That's human. We all fear the unknown. But the truth remains, nothing real is ever lost. The love, the lessons, the wisdom of every chapter stay with you. What falls away is only what can no longer hold the fullness of who you are becoming. Think back to a version of yourself from years ago. Would that person even recognize the you who sits here now? Likely not. And that's the point. You have walked through many lives already, many identities, many selves, and each time, you've been reborn into someone wider, someone deeper, someone more aligned with your truth. The world may not always understand. Some will call it instability. Others will see it as restlessness. But you know better. You know that these deaths and rebirths are not signs of failure, but of evolution. You are not abandoning your path. You are shedding layers, so the path can reveal itself more clearly. And maybe that is the deepest truth of all. You are not here to remain unchanged. You are here to transform, again and again, until your outer life reflects the vastness of your inner soul, like the phoenix rising from ashes, like the seed breaking open in the dark soil, like the dawn that follows every night. Your rebirths are proof that life itself is on your side. So when the next ending comes, as it surely will, Do not despair. Feel the grief. Yes, mourn what is passing. But also hold this knowing a new self is waiting to be born. And with each rebirth, you are not becoming someone else. You are becoming more of who you truly are. 7. Transformational Presence. There is a power that doesn't come from what you do, but from who you are. A quiet force that changes the atmosphere of a room the moment you walk into it. You may not even realize it, but your very presence carries weight. People feel it when they are near you. They feel seen, heard, and understood in ways they cannot put into words. It is not because you always have the right answers or know the perfect thing to say. In fact, often you don't need to say much at all. Your presence itself is the medicine. When you sit with someone in their pain, you don't rush to fix them. You don't cover their wounds with easy phrases. You simply allow them to exist as they are. Broken, struggling, incomplete, without judgment. And in that space, healing begins. Most people in the world are desperate to be noticed. They long for someone to pay attention, to care enough to really listen. Yet in so many conversations, words are exchanged, but no one is truly present. People are half distracted, waiting for their turn to speak, eager to move on. But when you are with someone, you give them something rare. You give them yourself. And that is why your presence transforms. Think of it like sitting beside a calm river. The water doesn't try to impress you. It doesn't shout or demand your attention. It simply flows. And yet, just being near it soothes you. Its stillness, its quiet strength, somehow enters your being. You leave feeling lighter, clearer, more at peace. That is what it's like for others to be near you. You are not trying to heal them. You are the healing space. You might not even realize the impact you have. A friend once told me, "I don't remember the words you said that day, but I remember how I felt sitting with you. I felt safe, like I could finally breathe." That is the gift of presence. It doesn't fade like clever advice or rehearsed speeches. It lingers in the body, in the memory, as a kind of anchor. And yet, this gift is not always easy to carry, because people are drawn to it. They come to you when they are hurting, when they need someone who won't turn away. Without even asking, you may find yourself holding space for everyone. Their grief, their anger, their confusion, and if you are not careful, you can become drained, giving so much of your presence that you forget to replenish your own. That's the lesson many of us have had to learn the hard way. Presence is powerful, but it is not infinite unless you tend to it. Just as a candle can burn bright only if it is protected from the wind, your light requires care. It's not about shutting people out, but about remembering that your presence is sacred. Not everyone is meant to have unlimited access to it. When you begin to honor that truth, your presence grows even stronger. Because then, when you do give it, it comes from a place of fullness, not depletion. When you sit with someone, they are not receiving the leftover fragments of your energy, but the deep stillness you have cultivated within yourself. This kind of presence doesn't come overnight. It is born out of your own journey through darkness. Because you have known pain, you don't flinch at the pain of others. Because you have faced your own shadows, you don't demand that others hide theirs. You carry a quiet authority, the kind that says, without words, I have been where you are, and I know you will make it through. It is the same reason why a scar can be more powerful than unbroken skin. A scar tells a story. It says, I was wounded here, but I healed. Your presence is like that. It carries the resonance of healing you have already lived. And so, when people are with you, they feel possibility. They feel that healing is not only for others, but also for them. There is nothing mystical about this. It is simple, human, and deeply needed in a world that rushes, that distracts, that avoids the discomfort of real connection. The ability to be truly present is revolutionary. And you, without trying, embody it. So honor this gift. Know that your presence is enough. You don't always have to solve, to fix, to explain. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can offer is your steady gaze, your open heart, your quiet acceptance. And also remember, you deserve that kind of presence. 2. The same way you sit with others in their truth. You need people who can sit with you in yours. Don't forget to allow yourself to be held, to be seen, to be nourished. Because your presence may transform others, but your own soul also longs to be met with the same depth. At the end of the day, your transformational presence is not about doing more. It is about being fully yourself, authentic, grounded, awake. When you live that way, your presence becomes like a lantern in the dark. You don't force anyone to walk toward the light. You simply shine. And in your shining, you remind them of their own. 8. A sense of undefined purpose. There is a restlessness that never quite leaves you, even in quiet moments, even when life looks fine on the outside. Something deep within whispers that there is more. It is not a loud voice, not a demand that shouts its orders. It is more like a pulse, a subtle tug on your heart, reminding you that you were not born only to survive, but to contribute, to create, to awaken something larger than yourself. Perhaps you felt it as a vague unease when you try to live only for comfort. Perhaps you've noticed it in the way ordinary goals, money, recognition, achievement, never fully satisfy. They bring a fleeting sense of accomplishment, but soon the hunger returns. That hunger is your soul's way of saying, you are here for something greater. Keep listening. And yet, the purpose itself often remains unclear. It doesn't arrive fully formed, written neatly across the sky. Instead, it arrives as a longing, a sense that your life has meaning beyond what you can see right now. At times, this can be frustrating. You may ask yourself, why can't I just know exactly what I'm meant to do? But maybe the not knowing is part of the path. Because if you were given the whole map at once, you might never learn to walk by trust. Think of it like a lantern in the dark. The light doesn't reveal the whole road ahead. It shows just enough for the next step. And with each step you take, more of the path is revealed. That's how purpose works. It unfolds as you move, as you grow, as you follow the quiet guidance of your own heart. I know it can feel unsettling to carry a calling you can't quite define. People may ask you, what do you want to do with your life? And you may struggle to answer. But deep down, you know it's not about a career or a role or a title. It's about being aligned with something larger, the evolution of consciousness itself. You sense that you are part of a story, much bigger than your own. This doesn't mean you must change the whole world in dramatic ways. Purpose isn't always about standing on a stage or leading a movement. Sometimes it is as simple and as profound as touching one life with your authenticity, planting one seed of truth in a moment when someone needed it most. Sometimes your purpose is lived quietly, in the way you love, the way you listen, the way you refuse to abandon what matters. The beauty of an undefined purpose is that it keeps you open. You're not trapped in rigid expectations. You're not clinging to one vision of what your life should be. Instead, you walk in openness, allowing life to shape you, to teach you, to lead you deeper into your calling. I've met many people who thought they had no purpose because they couldn't name it in a single sentence. But I've come to believe that purpose is less about definition and more about direction. You don't need to know the destination. You only need to honor the pull, to follow where the whisper leads, even when it doesn't make sense to anyone else. And perhaps this is why the longing feels so persistent. Because it isn't just personal, it is transpersonal, something bigger flowing through you. Jung once spoke of the transcendent function, the drive within us to grow beyond ourselves, to serve the unfolding of human consciousness. That is what you feel. It is not just your purpose, it is the purpose of life itself, moving through you. Of course, living with this sense of undefined mission can be lonely. People around you may not understand. They may be content with survival, with routines, with fitting in, and you may wonder why you can't do the same. But that longing inside, you will not let you settle. And maybe that's the point. You are not here to settle. You are here to expand. Sometimes, you will doubt it. You will question whether you're making it all up, whether you're chasing an illusion. But then, something happens. A synchronicity, a moment of clarity, a glimpse of how your presence impacts someone else. And you are reminded, no, this is real. The calling is real. The purpose, though undefined, is true. So what do you do with it? You learn to live in trust. You let your days be guided, not by the need to have it all figured out, but by the willingness to say yes to what feels alive. You create space for the whisper to grow louder. You allow yourself to be led, step by step, into a life that becomes a living expression of your deepest nature. And maybe one day, when you look back, you'll see that your purpose was never hidden. It was always there, woven into everything, in the way you loved, in the way you questioned, in the way you carried light through darkness. The shape of it may change, but the essence remains. You were never here just to exist. You were here to awaken, and to help others awaken too. So if you feel that restless knowing, don't be discouraged by the fact that it has no name yet. The seed does not know what the flower will look like. It only knows it must reach for the light. Trust that your reaching, your longing, is enough. Trust that each step will reveal the next. And remember, your life is not small. Even when the purpose feels undefined, it is shaping you, guiding you, preparing you to become the vessel through which consciousness itself expands. 9. Quantum connection. There are moments in life when things line up so precisely that it almost takes your breath away. You think of an old friend, and the phone rings. It's them. You wonder about a new direction, and suddenly a book, a conversation, or a stranger's story answers the very question that's been echoing in your heart. You walk into a room and realize it's exactly where you were supposed to be, though you couldn't have planned it if you tried. Most people call it coincidence, but you know better. You feel it in your bones. There is something larger moving beneath the surface of events, a current, invisible yet undeniable, weaving people, moments, and possibilities together. It is not random. It is resonance. It is the quantum connection that reveals itself when your inner state begins to harmonize with the greater field around you. You've likely noticed that this connection appears most clearly, not when you're striving, but when you're open, when you're not forcing outcomes or chasing answers, but allowing life to unfold. It's as if the universe waits for you to soften. And the moment you do, doors open, alignments appear, paths become clear. What once felt like obstacles begin to look like stepping stones. I remember a time when I was struggling, trying to push my way through a season that made no sense. The harder I tried to control it, the more lost I felt. Then one day, in a quiet moment of surrender, I stopped pushing, and almost immediately, small synchronicities began to appear. A chance encounter with someone who carried the wisdom I needed. A sentence in a book that spoke directly to my heart. None of it could have been planned. All of it felt guided. That was when I began to understand life is not a series of random accidents. It is a web of interconnection. And when your frequency shifts, the web rearranges to meet you. Quantum physics has a way of describing this mystery. It teaches us that particles are not fixed objects, but possibilities, fields of potential that collapse into form when observed. In much the same way, your reality is not static. It responds to the quality of your attention, to the vibration of your inner state. When you live in fear, you notice chaos. When you live in openness, you notice synchronicity. The field is the same, but your resonance changes the way it reveals itself to you. This doesn't mean you control everything. Life is too vast for that. But it does mean you participate. Your energy, your choices, your alignment becomes signals sent into the quantum field. And the field responds with echoes that meet you where you are. That's why, when you are deeply aligned, when your thoughts, feelings, and actions move in harmony with your authentic self, life seems to flow with you. And when you resist, when you betray your own truth, the flow feels blocked. This connection isn't about magic tricks or bending reality to your will. It's about remembering that you are not separate from the fabric of life. You are woven into it. Every breath, every thought, every act of awareness sends ripples through the field. And sometimes, those ripples return to you in ways that feel miraculous. But here's something I've learned. Synchronicity doesn't appear to convince you that you are special. It appears to remind you that you are connected. It whispers, you are not walking alone. The universe is with you. The path is unfolding as it should. And yet, it's easy to miss. If you rush through life, distracted, demanding proof, the signs often pass unnoticed. But when you slow down, when you pay attention, with a quiet heart, you begin to see the threads. You begin to notice how life places exactly what you need in your hands, even when it doesn't match what you thought you wanted. I think of it like music again. Imagine an orchestra tuning before a performance. At first, the sound is chaotic, each instrument playing without harmony, but then they align to the same pitch, and suddenly the noise becomes music. Synchronicity is like that. The world has always been playing, but when you come into tune, when your inner frequency resonates with the greater field, you begin to hear the music clearly. This doesn't mean life will be without hardship. There will still be challenges, losses, storms. But even in the difficulty, synchronicity can appear, a kind word at the right moment, an unexpected opportunity that comes when everything seemed closed, a sense that even in pain, you are being carried somewhere meaningful. The truth is, quantum connection is less about controlling outcomes and more about trust. Trusting that you are part of something vast and intelligent. Trusting that your openness invites life to meet you. Trusting that even when the path is unclear, the current knows where it is carrying you. So if you have felt those uncanny alignments, if you've experienced moments that felt orchestrated beyond your understanding, don't dismiss them. Pay attention. Let them remind you that your life is woven into a larger whole. Let them encourage you to keep aligning with authenticity, because authenticity is what tunes you to the field. And above all, let them comfort you, because each synchronicity, each alignment, each strange coincidence that feels like more than chance is life's way of whispering, you are exactly where you need to be. Keep walking. Keep trusting. The current is carrying you home. 10. The ability to illuminate shadows. Most people spend their lives running from what feels uncomfortable inside them. They keep busy to drown out their doubts. They cover their pain with smiles, distractions, or endless activity. They cling to what looks good on the surface while quietly fearing the darkness within. But you are different. You do not turn away so easily. Instead of running from the shadows, you sit with them. Instead of denying what hurts, you lean in to listen. This is not because you enjoy pain or because you are stronger than others. It is because something in you understands that the only way out is through. You know, perhaps from experience, that when you bury the parts of yourself you don't like, they don't disappear. They grow stronger in the dark. But when you bring them into the light, when you allow them to be seen, acknowledged, even spoken to, they lose their grip. They transform. It's much like a child hiding under a blanket, convinced there are monsters in the room. The fear grows larger in the dark. But when you switch on the light, the monster dissolves. The shadow was never the enemy. The ignorance was. In the same way, when you turn toward your own shadows, your anger, your grief, your fears, you begin to realize that they were never meant to destroy you. They were messengers. They were parts of yourself asking to be healed. Not everyone can do this. Many people find it unbearable to look at the ugly places within themselves, but you seem to carry a rare courage. You can see what others hide, and instead of judging it, and you allow it, you listen, and sometimes you even hold up a mirror so that others can see their own shadows with compassion instead of shame. This ability is powerful, but it is not easy, because when you walk with shadows, you also carry the weight of honesty. You notice when someone's words don't match their heart. You sense the pain they are trying to bury, and it can be hard, because while you see the truth, others may not be ready to face it. Sometimes they resist you, even push you away, because your very presence makes them aware of what they are trying to hide. But even then, your role is not to force the light. It is simply to keep holding it. Light doesn't need to chase away darkness. It only needs to shine. And eventually, the darkness recedes on its own. You've learned that the shadows lose their power when they are met with patience, compassion, and honesty. Perhaps this ability came to you because you've walked through your own shadows. You've known grief that hollowed you out. You've known anger that scared you. You've known shame that made you want to disappear. But instead of letting those things bury you, you sat with them. You learned to ask, "What are you here to teach me?" And slowly, painfully, they began to answer. They showed you resilience, empathy, humility. They showed you that the cracks in your being were not signs of weakness, but openings for light. And now, when you sit with someone else in their darkness, you bring that same compassion. You don't recoil. You don't tell them to cheer up or move on. You know those words don't heal. Instead, and you sit quietly, offering the safety of your presence until they are ready to face what they've avoided. In you, they find permission to be human, messy, imperfect, whole, in many ways. This is what true healing looks like. It's not about pretending the shadows don't exist or banishing them with force. It's about integration, allowing the darkness and the light to coexist so that wholeness can emerge. You embody that truth. And in doing so, you remind others that they don't need to fear their own depths. But don't forget this, just because you can face shadows doesn't mean you must carry everyone else's. Your gift is not about rescuing others from their darkness. It is about showing, by your presence, that it can be faced, that it is survivable, that it can even be transformative. The rest of the work is theirs to do. I think of the night sky. At first, it looks dark, endless, empty. But if you stand long enough, your eyes adjust, and you begin to see the stars. The darkness was not just absence. It was a backdrop for light to reveal itself. Your relationship with your own shadows has been like that. You stayed long enough in the night to see the stars appear, and now you help others trust that their night sky, too, is filled with hidden light. So, when you feel the weight of this ability, when you wonder why you see what others can't, remember, you are not here to eliminate the darkness. You are here to illuminate it, to show that even in the shadow, there is meaning. Even in the pain, there is wisdom. Even in the places we fear most, there is a doorway to healing. This is your gift, not to deny the darkness, but to transform your relationship with it. And by living that truth, you give others permission to do the same. 11. Living as a messenger. There are times in your life when words come through you and you wonder, where did that come from? It might be in a quiet conversation with a friend, or in the lines you scribble on paper, or in a story you share without much thought. And later, someone tells you, that was exactly what I needed to hear. In those moments, you realize something profound. You are not just living for yourself. You are carrying messages meant for others too. It isn't about being a preacher or a teacher in the traditional sense. It's something quieter, more natural. You are like a tuning fork that vibrates with truths that want to be remembered. When you speak authentically, when you create from the depths of your being, it resonates in people who are ready to receive it. They don't hear just your words, they hear a reminder of their own inner knowing. This can feel like a strange responsibility at times. You may not feel qualified. You may think, who am I to carry messages for others? I'm just trying to figure out my own life. But that is the beauty of it. The messages don't come because you are perfect. They come because you are human. Because you've walked through shadow. Because you've known loss. Because you've struggled and risen again. It is the texture of your lived experience that makes your words ring true. I think of it like a messenger bird carrying letters across great distances. The bird doesn't need to understand the full meaning of what it carries. It only needs to fly, to deliver. In the same way, you don't always need to know the full impact of what you share. You only need to keep showing up, to keep offering what comes through you, and trust that it will reach the hearts that are meant to hear it. Perhaps you've already experienced this. A moment when something you said in passing stayed with someone for years, shaping them in ways you didn't anticipate. Or perhaps you've felt it the other way around. When someone's simple, honest words became the spark that shifted your entire path. That's what it means to live as a messenger. The messages move through all of us, weaving us together, reminding us that none of us are alone in this journey. At times, it may feel heavy. You may notice that people look to you for guidance, even when you don't feel ready to give it. You may fear saying the wrong thing, or worry that your words won't be enough. But the truth is, the message isn't about perfection. It's about sincerity. It's about speaking from the heart, from the place in you that refuses to lie, even when silence would be easier. And living as a messenger is not only about words, it's about presence. Sometimes the message you carry is expressed in how you move through the world, in the choices you make, in the way you embody your values. Someone might never hear you speak, but they feel the truth in how you live. They see the way you honor authenticity, the way you stand in integrity, the way you refuse to betray yourself. And in that, they receive a message too. A message that whispers, "It's possible. I can live this way too." It is important to remember that you don't carry messages for everyone. Not everyone will hear you, and not everyone is meant to. Some might dismiss you. Some may resist you. Some may even mock you. That's part of the path. The message is not for them. Not yet. It's for the ones whose hearts are open, whose timing is aligned, who are ready to recognize themselves in your reflection. This means you don't have to push. You don't have to convince. You don't have to force your truth onto anyone. You simply live it. You let it radiate in your words, in your work, in your presence. And those who are ready will find you. Those who are searching will recognize your voice. Not because you are louder, but because you are authentic. Living as a messenger doesn't make you better than anyone else. It doesn't place you above them. In fact, it humbles you, because you know the messages are not yours to hoard. They move through you like water through a riverbed. Your task is simply to stay open, to let the current flow, to not block it with fear or self-doubt. So if you felt that sense, that your life is more than just yours, that your voice, your creativity, your presence carries something for others, honor it. Don't dismiss it as imagination. Don't silence it because you fear being misunderstood. The messages you carry may be exactly what someone, somewhere, has been waiting for. And remember, you don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to know the whole story of your life to live as a messenger. You only need to keep listening, keep speaking, keep allowing truth to move through you in whatever form it takes. A conversation, a piece of art, a moment of compassion. Each of these can be a message, a reminder, a signal sent into the world. In the end, living as a messenger is less about delivering answers and more about awakening questions, less about telling people who they should be, and more about reminding them of who they already are. It is about being a mirror that reflects not your own brilliance, but the brilliance that lies within everyone. So carry your message gently, but carry it boldly. Know that your life itself is a signal sent out into the world, and somewhere, someone will hear it and remember their own truth. You are not too much. You are exactly what the world needs. If you have seen yourself in these signs, if even a few of them echoed something familiar deep within, I want you to remember this. Your difference is not a burden. It is a gift. The world may not always know how to receive you, but that does not make your depth less valuable. You were never meant to fit neatly into the boxes that society built for comfort. You were meant to remind the world that those boxes are too small for the soul. For much of your life, you may have felt misunderstood. You may have wondered why your intensity unsettled people, why your questions seemed to make others uncomfortable, why your hunger for meaning set you apart. But none of that was an accident. It was a kind of preparation. Every season of loneliness, every moment of doubt, every quiet walk through the shadows was shaping you into the person who could carry a light the world didn't even know it needed. Your sensitivity is not fragility. It is intelligence tuned to higher frequencies. The things you feel so deeply are not weaknesses. They are proof that you are awake in a world that often prefers sleep. Your intensity is not too much. It is exactly enough to cut through the noise and bring clarity where others only see fog. Your refusal to compromise is not stubbornness. It is your soul's way of honoring truth, even when it costs you acceptance. So stop apologizing for who you are. Stop dimming your light because it makes others squint. Stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You do not exist to be convenient. You exist to be real. And in your realness, in your willingness to live authentically, you become a mirror for others who have forgotten their own depth. Think of a lighthouse standing on the edge of the sea. It doesn't chase ships. It doesn't beg to be useful. It simply shines. And because it shines, those lost in the storm find their way. That is who you are when you live without apology. You become a point of orientation, a reminder, a signal that truth is still alive in this world. Yes, it can be lonely. Yes, the path of authenticity is often narrow, but you are not alone in the larger sense. The universe has always been waiting for souls like you to align, to remember, to step forward. Every time you choose truth over convenience, meaning over distraction, authenticity over conformity, you are not just living your life. You are expanding what it means to be human. And the world needs that now more than ever. It needs people who can feel deeply in a time of numbness. It needs people who can ask why in a culture content with what. It needs people who refuse to settle for half-truths, who dare to see both the shadows and the light, who carry messages not just for themselves, but for the collective. The world needs your presence, your voice, your authenticity, not tomorrow, not someday, now. So take your place with quiet confidence. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to wait for permission. You don't need the world to fully understand you before you begin living as yourself. Begin now, live now, shine now, and when the doubts return, because they will, remind yourself you are not too much. You never were. It was always the world that was too little, too distracted, too unwilling to see. But slowly, surely, the world is changing, and you are part of that change. You are one of the ones carrying humanity forward, one authentic step at a time. So, breathe into your own being. Love the rarity that you are. Let it be not a secret you hide, but a light you carry openly. You don't need to explain it to everyone. You don't need to be understood by everyone. You only need to live it fully. And in living it, you will call forth others who recognize themselves in you. Because in the end, your life is not just your own. It is a message, a signal, a song. It is the universe remembering itself through you. And when you live as you truly are, without apology, you give the rest of us permission to do the same. So let your sensitivity be wisdom. Let your intensity be strength. Let your refusal to compromise be a promise to truth. And above all, let your uniqueness be your love song to existence. You are not here just to exist. You are here to expand what it means to be alive. And the world, though it may not say it out loud, is waiting for the light of rare souls like you. Shine, not because the world is ready, but because you are.